Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Matt's going to be teaching you how to play Bad Guy. So I got a chance to play through this arrangement today, and I've got to say a couple things come to mind. First is that it's not super hard to play. It's going to be perfectly suited for that seasoned beginner player. So when you work through it, you're going to notice that a lot of it is pretty easy, but then he throws in some stuff that is a little bit challenging but super cool to play. For example, so that little lick towards the end of the tune, that is just so cool. But it's probably something that a lot of us haven't done, keeping out of a chord shape, in this case in E minor, and then having the index finger going up and down and back and forth. And it's going to present a few new tricks, so to speak. So anyways, with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about this lesson. So in this video, you guys are going to learn the entire arrangement. But if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, you can do so by clicking this link right here, or going to the site rockclass101.com and doing a search for Bad Guy. Now, also on that page will be the on-screen tab viewer. So this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a really great tool for getting a song like this down that much easier. All right guys, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Matt to teach you how to play this song, and then I'll see you at the end of the video.
Today we're going to work on a solo rendition of Bad Guy by Billie Eilish. This is a really fun arrangement to play that uses a lot of fingerstyle techniques, and let's go ahead and dive into the intro. Now, the intro is actually pretty easy. It's a lot of fun to play too. We're going to start here by just playing our open E string. And then after we play this, we're going to mute the strings with our fretting hand by just touching the strings. You'll notice if you look at the tab, there are a lot of rests. And at any one of these rests, what you basically want to do is just mute the strings so that the note stops ringing. And so after we play that open E, we're then going to play the open E again, then the open G, then the open E again, and then mute with the rest there, and then open E again. And that's all of measure 1. But let's count it and play it so that you can hear this sort of timing. It's something like this. And counting in, I'm going to count 2 and 3 and 4 and before I go into the measure. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, if I were to count as I play that would be something like this. Just starting with it, it'd be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And what I like to do is immediately go on to measure 2. Most of this song has this feeling of these measures in sort of pairs. So I find that it's much easier to learn these when you're learning 2 measures at a time. Measure 2 is going to start with still same open strings. We're going to start with a muting of the left hand on 1, then open E on and, mute on 2, open E on and, open G on 3, open E on and then take your index finger and place it here on the first fret of the second fret of the C string to play that for 4 and. So that one is something like this. If I were to count it and play it, would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And the first 2 measures in time, playing it together, should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now from here, we actually repeat this. And now we go on to measure 3. And at measure 3, the rhythm is exactly the same as measures 1 and 2. So 3 and 4 are identical to measures 1 and 2 in their rhythm, which is really nice. It's just going to be played on a different place. We're going to play our open A string. And then we're going to play it again and play 3 on the A with our ring finger here. Then the open A again. open A again. Going on to measure 4, the open A again, 3 on the A, open A, and then the open G with our high G string. If you're playing a low G ukulele, anytime you see that open G played, you'll have to sub with 3 on the E. So measures 3 and 4, which are the same as 1 and 2 rhythmically, should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And now as we go into measure 5 and 6, these are the last 2 measures of this intro section. And rhythmically, they're very similar, with measure 6 being a little different. To start here on 5, though, we're going to take our index finger, place it on the 4th fret of the G string, play that. And then we're going to play it a second time. We're going to use our ring finger to come up here to the 6 on the A string. And we're still going to hold the 4 so that we're ready to go, because after we play that 6, we're going to play that 4 again. And one more time. And the rhythm there is the same as measure 1 and 3, and that's going to be the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then when we go into measure 6, it's a little bit different. It's going to start the same with the mute on 1, 4 again on the and, mute on 2, 4 again on the and then instead of continuing with more notes, it's going to be nice and simple and just play the open A string. So measure 6 is 4 on the G, and then 4 on the G again, and then open on the A. And the timing of that is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So measure 5 and 6 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Pretty straightforward. And that's the intro section. Now as we move on to melody B, we're going to be playing essentially the main part of the song. We're going to be working on the verse here. And to do this, we're going to be using a pluck technique along with lots of muting with the left hand to create these really cool syncopated patterns. Now all that syncopation means is an accent on the offbeat, and you'll notice that this song will use these same rhythms going throughout it. So when we learn this, we're going to learn it 2 measures at a time, because I find it's much, much easier to internalize the rhythm when you hear it over these 2 measures, and it starts to get the groove. So to start, we're going to play an E minor. Just take your ring finger, place it on the 4th fret of the C string, and your middle finger, place it here on the 3rd fret of the E. That's it. We're not going to even need the 2 on the A with the index that we normally play. We're going to pluck here. And then we're going to mute, and you can do 2 different things to mute. You can use your left hand and actually use your extra fingers to mute the strings, or you can take your plucking hand and you can touch the strings to create that muted sound. So it's whatever you're more comfortable with. Both work and sound good. You'll actually notice I use a combination of both usually. So we're going to pluck, mute, and then pluck, and then mute, and then pluck, and then mute, and then pluck again. The rhythm there on measure 7 is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into 8, you'll notice it's going to be mute, pluck, mute, pluck, mute, pluck, and then the last pluck of this is going to open the A string and play that, so all 4 strings. And that will ring for the last 2 parts of 4 and. So measures 7 and 8 in time, and this rhythm is used throughout the song, so you really want to make sure you get comfortable with this. Should sound something like this, really, really slow. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And so that sounds like this without me counting it out loud. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, when it's played that slow, it sounds pretty boring, doesn't it? So I'm going to play it much faster now, just so that you can start to hear how this will sound when it's sped up. The beats per minute on this song is about 130, which is way faster than what we're practicing right now. So it should sound something like this more at full speed. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And this will actually repeat 7 and 8. So that's what it sounds like at full speed. Practice it slow, make sure you're counting it, getting comfortable, and then as you start to feel it, speed it up to get that sound. Now let's go on to measure 9. At 9, it's going to be actually the same rhythm as 7 and 8. 9 and 10 are going to be the same, just a new chord. What that's going to be is an A minor. Take your index, place it here on the 2nd fret of the G string. But we're also going to add our ring finger here to the 3rd fret of the E string to get that melody note. We're going to pluck the G, C, and E strings. We're going to pluck, mute, pluck, mute, pluck, mute, pluck, mute for measure 9, but with that rhythm. So that's going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into 10, it's going to start with mute, then pluck, mute, pluck, mute, pluck, and then the last pluck of measure 10, you're going to add your middle finger here to 2 on the A string. So you have 2, 0, 3, 2. You're going to pluck all 4. So measure 9 and 10 in time, pretty slow, sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, when it's played faster, again, it sounds much more like the song for this sort of. So it's important when you're practicing it to start speeding it up as you get comfortable so that you can really hear the song. So now we go on to measure 11 and 12, which are going to be very similar rhythmically. We're going to start with a new chord though. We're going to be playing a B7 chord. Take your ring finger, place it on the 4th fret of the G string, middle finger on the 3rd fret of the C, and index on the 2nd fret of the E string. We're going to pluck all 4 strings on 1, mute, pluck, mute, and then we're going to pluck, mute, pluck. So measure 11, the timing there is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Same as it was on measure 9 and 7. But as we go to measure 12, it's going to start the same, mute, pluck, but then it's going to be different because we're going to do another pluck here. And then we're going to mute the strings. You'll notice on the tab it says tap. What this means is we're going to just take our index finger and we're going to tap it on the side of the ukulele, create a little bit of a percussive feel. So that's all that you're going to do on those 2 X's there is you're going to go tap, tap. And the rhythm there is going to be 3 and 4 and. So measures 11 and 12 counted playing should be something like this. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And if I play it without saying that, something like this, 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now from here, we go on to measure 13, which really is a continuation of the B section with some repeats. Now, what's interesting about this is we're not going to play it exactly the same way. We're going to add a little bit of strumming in here to make it sound a little bit more interesting. So starting on measure 13, we're going to go back to that first E minor chord we played, ring finger here on 4 of the C, middle finger here on 3 of the E. And we're going to start by playing the exact same part. It's going to be the same. That is exactly the same as what we played earlier on measure 13. But then on measure 14, we're going to do the mute, pluck, mute. And then we're going to go up, down, up on the 0, 4, 3, 0 with that open A string to be for the last 3 eighth notes of measure 14. So what that looks like is 13 and 14 in time really slowly with me saying the rhythms. It would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now without me saying it, it sounds something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And it's actually going to repeat here. So you're going to go right back to 13 and play it again. And again, when it's played this slow, it doesn't quite have the groove of the song just because it's played so fast. So as you're practicing it, work on speeding it up. And just for context, I'm going to play 13 and 14 at more of a full speed so that you can hear it. It sounds something like this. And that's with the repeat too, starts to really groove. So now as we go on to measure 15, it's going to be the exact same rhythm on 15 and 16 that it was on 13 and 14, which is fantastic. It's just going to be over that second chord that we played, the 2-0-3-0, the A minor chord, index finger here on the second fret of the G string, and ring finger here on the third fret of the E string. We're going to pluck the G, C, and E, and then mute, pluck, mute, pluck, mute, pluck, same rhythm there going on. It's mute, pluck, mute, pluck, mute, and then we're going to go up, down, up with that same rhythm, adding the middle finger here to 2 on the A and go up, down, up. So 15 and 16 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going on to 17 and 18, which are the last parts of this melody B section, we're going to actually strum all of this. So we're going to go to our B7 chord, ring finger here on the 4th fret of the G string, middle finger here on the 3rd fret of the C, and index here on the 2nd fret of the E. We're going to go down, mute, up, mute, up for measure 17. And then as we go into 18, we're going to go mute, up, down, mute. And then to finish off 18, we're going to play open G twice and then open A, which is actually the pickup into melody C. So measure 17 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So now that we can hear all of this, I'm going to play measures 7 through measures 18 so that you can hear what this section sounds like. And I'm going to play a little bit faster than we worked on, but still not quite full speed so that you can hear what this transition speed sort of sounds like. Something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So now we're going to go on to melody C. And on melody C, we're really at the main part of the song, at the chorus. And to play this, we're going to use a different E minor chord. We're going to take our ring finger, place it on the 4th fret of the C string, play 0, 4, 0, 0. We're going to pluck all 4 strings. And then what's really neat about this is it's all open strings for the melody. So after we pluck that, we're going to play open E, open G, open A twice, and then open G. And that's all of measure 19, which sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And you'll actually notice it says repeat 3 times. So we're going to play this 3 total times. before we go on to measure 20 now, where we're going to pluck all 4 strings, and then we're going to play open on the E, and then rest, so we mute, and then we're going to play open G, open A from measure 20. So measure 20 sounds like this: 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now we go on to measure 21. Here at measure 21, we're going to take our pinky, play 5 on the A with our open C and open E. And then we're going to play 2 on the A with our index finger, open on the G, and then play open A twice, then open G, and this measure is going to repeat. So in time, I'm going to play it with the repeat. Sounds something like this: 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into 22, we're going to play this high B chord. To do this, take your index, place it on the 6th fret of the C string, ring finger to the 7 of the E string, and middle finger here to 6 on the A. It's like a G chord, just moved way up, right? We're going to pluck our C, E, and A. Be very careful not to play the G string here. It doesn't sound very good. Play those 3, then 7 on the E, then open G, then open A twice, then open G again. And going right into 23, since it sort of likes to pair here, we're going to play the 6 on the C and the 7 on the E together twice, and then mute. And then it's the pickup into the next part, which is going to be 2 on the A with the middle finger, do a pull off to open A. So measures 22 and 23 in time should sound something like this: 2 and 3 and 4 and. And you'll notice that is I'm, and then we're going to play 24. It's going to be bad. And then for Guy, what we do is we take our middle finger here, place it on the 2nd fret of the C string, and we're going to play the C and E together and slide into the 4th fret. And that's going to be I'm a bad guy. And then measure 25, very straightforward here on measure 25, we just hold that same note that's been sustaining. So measure 24 and 25 should sound something like this. And I'm actually going to play the little pickup I'm a, which is the 4 and of measure 23. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And we hold it for the full 4 beats of measure 25. So that is the entirety of the chorus of the song, or the C section. So that we can hear this, I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it at a reasonable speed, not quite full speed, but so that you can start getting a better feel for the groove. And I'm also going to include the pickup into this melody C. So that means I'm going to play the last 3 notes of measure 18 as well as I count in. So here we go. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Now from here, we go on to melody D. And to be totally honest, this is my favorite part of the song, and it's what I can't stop playing. The rest of the song, it's fun, it's fine, but melody D is the sort of solo section, and it's so much fun on the ukulele. It sounds awesome. So let's go and dive in. So what we need to do first for this is we're going to fret an E minor chord. 0, 4, 3, 2, ring finger here on 4 of the C, middle here on 3 of the E, and index here on 2 of the A. We're going to start by plucking our C string, and then we're going to play the A string, and we're going to mute. I'm going to play the C string again, And then here's where it gets a little tricky, but also real fun. We're going to move our index finger down to 1 on the A. Now, if you're struggling with that stretch, make sure that these two fingers don't move and that the index just sort of tilts down. You'll actually notice I'm not trying to use just the base of my pad here to mute this. I'm actually turning the finger with the nail going towards the headstock to be able to play that part. So I'm going to play this, then go down to 1, and then come back up. And you'll notice on the tab it says play the 1, and slide up to 2, and then slide back down to 1. This is the most challenging part of the song, but also the most satisfying. And so after you do that slide, you're then going to play 3 on the E, and it repeats. So measure 26 really slow looks like this. I'm just going to play it really slow, sort of free time. And it repeats. Now here's a trick. The slower you play it, the harder it is to do that slide, because the sound naturally decays as you do it. So what I find helps is practice it a little bit fast. And it's going to repeat this 4 times, which is awesome because it's so much fun to play. I wish I'd play it 8 times. So in time, 4 times, it sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... You'll notice I don't get as good of a tone when I play it at that speed as I would if I played it at this speed. And that's because the slide is easier with speed. So as you're working on it, keep in mind it only gets easier as you get better muscle memory because you can speed it up. So we go on to 27 now though. 27 is going to slide up and be the exact same thing. Exactly the same. Just now instead of being at 4-3-2, you're going to be at 9-8-7. So ring finger's here on 9 of the C, middle finger is here on 8 of the E, and index is here on 7 of the E. It's an E note, 7 on the A string. And we're going to do the exact same thing. So we play C string, 9, and then A string, which is on 7, mute, and then 9 on the C. Then index moves down to 6, slide up to 7, slide back down to 6, 8 on the E. So it's exactly the same. Instead of repeating 4 times, this one's only going to be played twice. So that sounds something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And when it's done faster, you'll hear my tones a little better for the same reason. So now as we go on to measure 28 and measure 29, because they're sort of tied together a little bit, we're going to play the 7 on the E first. So here's how we do it. This is our A minor chord, right? What I want you to do is I want you to take off your ring finger. So now you just have your middle and index where they were before on 8 and 7, and slide them both down 1 fret so that now it's on 7 and 6. You're going to play the 7 on the E, that's the first note. Then you're going to take your pinky and put it up to 9 on the A. Then you're going to play the 7 on the E again. And then you're going to take the pinky off and play 6 on the A, which is already there with the index finger. Then 7 on the E again. And then take the index off, play the open A, and let it ring. And what you'll notice here is it rings all the way into measure 29. And at the very end of 29, it's actually the end of the song, and starts with that same 2A pull off to 0A for I'm a bad guy. But before we get there, 28 and 29 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And now 30 through the end of the song here, we're going to play open G for the word bad. And then we're going to do that same 2 on the C, slide to 4 on the C that we did earlier in the song. But then as it transitions here into measure 31, we hold that. And then we're going to use a natural harmonic on fret 7. Now, natural harmonics are a cool sound. There are lots of different courses here on our Class 101 that work on it. I worked on another tutorial I did here on Toss a Coin to Your Witcher. We ended with the exact same harmonic. But the trick to harmonics is just making sure that you're lightly touching the strings and not compressing them, and you're right over the fret wire. I also find it's easier to cross the hand over to make that harmonic for 2 reasons. 1, it's a little easier and get a good sound. And 2, it looks really cool. And who doesn't want to look cool? So 30 and 31 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... or the crossover. So now that we can hear all of melody D, which again is my favorite part of the song, should sound something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And there you have it. Bad Guy. Super fun song to play, really challenging with the rhythms. It's really hard for me to teach this song slow because so much of it becomes a feel, and it's really easy once you have the feel, but it can be tricky to get there. So what I recommend is don't worry about doing the whole song. Work on moments of it. Listen to the original recording of the tune and try to piece that feel together, and then trust that as you're practicing it faster, you're starting to get that sound of... because it's really the same feel going through the whole song. It's super fun to play. Well, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below, and feel free to check out the other tutorials here on Rock Class 101, and I'll see you guys next time for the next song we do. Thanks so much.
Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed learning this tune. This was definitely one of my favorite pop songs of 2019. It's just got a cool melody and a really cool vibe to it. So I do want to remind you that if you want to get the tabs to print off and keep for your records, you can do so by clicking this link or going to the site rockclass101.com and doing a search for Bad Guy. And don't forget too, on that page is that really cool interactive tab player so you can hit play, watch the tab scroll across in real time. You can highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down, all that fun jazz. So guys, again, I hope you enjoyed this lesson and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.